Whether it might be a business transaction or a love quarrel, whatever it is, they respect their privacy. The deer comes to the narrator, bows his head and snatches the food packet and goes away. So why even the deer has followed it? Today, you're inside the car, me on the road. Tomorrow, you might be on the road and me in the car. Hello everyone, I'm Babita Tamaya, lecturer, Department of English, Vidhyaashram Pre-University College, the Temple of Excellence, Mysuru. In my previous revision class, I revised the poem Heaven If You're Not on Earth. And in my today's revision class, I'll be revising the chapter Japan and Brazil through a traveler's eye. Did you know that there are 195 nations in our world? And out of 195 nations, 193 nations are recognized by United Nations. Now, why I am talking about this? Because as we travel from one place to another, the people differs, the place differs, their custom, mannerism, language, food, everything differs. This chapter is basically considered as a travelogue. If you don't know what is travelogue, it is a piece of information or record composed or recorded by a traveler when he visits the foreign countries. Here, George Mike, the writer of this chapter and the one who has visited Japan. What does it say about Japan when he enters there? The writer tells us that within 15 minutes after you have landed in Japan, you will learn that the people of Japan are an exquisitely well-mannered people. So here George Mike says that after reaching Japan, after 15 minutes only, he'll get to know the people of Japanese are well-mannered, exquisitely well-mannered. They respect each other's privacy there. They give lot of respect for their privacy. The writer supports his opinion with an example. For example, he says that one finds red telephones in the streets, shops, as of hotels, etc. And the instrument is placed on a table or a counter. They do not have space to spare the telephone booth. So what happens in Japan? The place is too very congested. They don't have so much of space. So what do? The telephone receiver is kept near the counter, that is the billing counter. And if anyone is over the phone, they are least bothered to listen the conversation. Whether it might be a business transaction or a love quarrel, whatever it is, they respect their privacy. They don't interfere, nor they give their ears what they are speaking over the phone. And the place is too very crowded and their phone is kept on the counter and the people are not at all bothered to listen the conversation. They respect their privacy there. He calls it a quaint because everybody keeps bowing to everybody else. So what is the mannerism of Japan? What they follow in Japan? What they follow in the sense they bow to each other. Everybody keeps bowing to everybody else. He comments that though bowing is like a shaking hands or kissing the cheek, it is quainter, more formal and more oriental but also infectious. What happens in our country? We'll just join our hands and bend our head saying namaste, or we'll shake our hands. But here in Japan, instead of shaking the hands or hugging each other and kissing, what they do in the sense, they'll just bow their head. That is what they follow in Japan. We bow too deeply or not deeply enough, or we bow to the wrong man at the wrong time. Secondly, we do not clap our hands in front of us, which is considered a bad way, or we may clap the hands in a bad way, which is considered even worse. So when we bow to each other, it doesn't mean that we have to clap our hands. It means to say that you're not following the custom. You're just against them and you will be considered as a bad-mannered person. So even when we go to that country, even we have to follow the same thing. It might be sometimes difficult for us because we are not known to that, but the Japanese people find it very easy because they are into such custom over there. Japanese have a complicated hierarchy in bowing. how deeply they bow, how long they bow, and who will stand erect. So for them, it is very easy because they know how long to bow and how deeply to bow to each other. But the people from other countries find it difficult to follow that custom. Let's see one of the incidents that took place in America. The author cites an incident that happened in America. He tells us that in one of the American states, there was a traffic law which laid down that if two cars met at an intersection, neither was to move before two other had gone. So if this is the intersection, the one car is coming this way and the other is moving that way. So here you can see both the cars are intersected there. So how they are supposed to move? Both cannot move at a time. If both the cars move at a time, there might be an accident. So here what happens? Neither has to move further or anyone has to move first. Moving on to the next, that is what is the culture they follow in their family. According to the Japanese culture, the wife bows to her husband, the child bows to his father, younger brother to elder brothers, and the sister bows to all brothers of whatever age. So this is the rules they follow in their family. The wife, each and every time, the wife should bow to her husband, the child should bow to her father, younger brother to the elder brothers, and sister to each and every one, that is all the brothers of whatever age they are. Whether they are in the highest position or lowest position, whatever it doesn't matter to them. But they follow, what is the mannerism they follow or the mania that the Japanese follow? That is bowing to each other. The author then recollects a sight he had seen in Japan, that a Japanese mothers carrying their babies on their back on the little saddles, and whenever their mother bowed, babies bowed too. So here the mother is carrying a baby at her back, she has tied it, and when she bowed to a person who is there, whom she meets, what happens? All of a sudden when she bows her head, even the baby also bows. So this is what they follow there. He narrates his experience on a fast train between Tokyo and Osaka. He tells us that two conductors who is entering into the carriage in a train, theoretically, that is in a theoretical manner they enter, and both the conductors march towards the middle of the coach. They both bow to each other and then start checking the tickets. He also tells the reader that in one of the parts of Nara, he bought a pack of food for deer. The deer come up to, he looked into his eyes and bowed deeply. So here in one of the part of Japan, that is in Nara, the narrator has bought a food packet, and what the deer does there? The deer comes to the narrator, bow his head and snatch the food packet and goes away. So why even the deer has followed it? Because even the deer has seen the people of Japan bowing to each other. So the deer also has followed the same custom. And in our country, when we go to the malls, we can see a man with the Indian attire wearing a turban as well as his clothes. So what does he do? He just welcomes or greets the people by joining his hand. But there in Japan, they appoint bowing girls to welcome the people. Whom do the Japanese employ there? The Japanese employing the bowing girls to welcome the people or to greet the people. He ends his travelogue on Japan with his humorous observations about soup eating in Japan. So how do we eat soup or how do we have soup? Do we make sound while having soup? No. If we make sound, what we say, what the other people will say about us or talk about us, the other people might say that what an ill-mannered person. So what happens in Japan? When you have a soup in Japan, you have to make a fearful noise. If you don't make a fearful noise, the person who have served you the soup, he feels that you're not appreciating the soup. So he says that you are an ill-mannered person. And whatever the fearful noise you make, it should not irritate or disturb the other people. If it irritates or disturbs the other people, even then also you will be called as an ill-mannered loud. So while having soup, you have to make a fearful noise, but it should not irritate the other person sitting over there. Not only about here, we see all kinds of mannerism they follow in Japan. But when it comes to the bus stop, when the bus arrives, here no one greets each other. They'll just rush, elbow each other, rush inside the bus to get a seat. So whatever the customs they have followed, that is bowing to each other, when it comes to the bus stop, they will forget everything. He says very casually, nobody hurries in Brazil. Then he sarcastically adds, it does not really matter whether you reach your destination as soon as a day late or not at all. So till now I spoke about the Japan's mannerism. Now it is about the traffic in Brazil. So when the traffic is too very disgusting there. So what happens there? If the people want to reach their workplace, it might be an hour late, or they might reach their destination very soon, or an hour late, or they don't go and reach the destination. They're not bothered of it. But here in our country, if it doesn't go and reach to a particular time, we'll just drive very fast. We try to reach our destination at a particular point of time. But there, it doesn't matter. But the people of Brazil, they have too much of leisure time. So what do they do at that time? The grave pavements in the streets are often decorated with beautiful black mosaics, which he calls a unique type of decoration. So the people of Brazil have too much of leisure time. So during that time, they decorate their pavements with black mosaics. He tells the reader that the very same leisurely characters, when they get behind a steering wheel, they drive very fast and are reckless. So when they have leisure time, they'll decorate the pavements. But when they get the steering wheel in their hand, their driving is too very fast. No one can control their driving. Motor cars are extremely expensive. What are extremely expensive in Brazil? Motor cars are extremely expensive. The number of motor vehicles is growing by leaps and bounds, and if they were distributed free of charge to all sundry. Here, George Mike says that motor cars are extremely expensive, and each and every one have the motor cars. It means to say that it is distributed for free of cost for each and every one in Brazil, because the traffic is also so very high and it is expensive, but even then it is distributed for free of cost. That is what George Mike says, because everyone afford motor cars there. He remarks that it is not that the drivers not care about pedestrians. The trouble is they are in fact on the lookout for them. As soon as the pedestrians step off the pavement, the drivers consider him as a fair game. He takes an accelerator. The pedestrian has to jump, leap and run for dear life. What the people in Brazil do when they are seated in the driving seat, so when they see the pedestrian crossing the road, they will give the accelerator and they'll move the vehicle very fast. So the person, one who is crossing the road, he has to jump, leap and save his dear life, because that is the way of driving about the people in Brazil. The author talks about the rivalry between two drivers. Though the war between two drivers appears to be a murderous, yet they are good tempered. So they even talk about the two drivers. So if one is overtaking, one vehicle is moving and the other one who is at the back, he just tries to overtake it. So at that time, what happens? Accident might occur. But even then, will they come fighting for the people over there? No, they'll never do that. They'll smile at each other. There is no manhunting and no hostile. He describes the style of their driving. The cut in, overtake on both sides, force you to brake violent, commit all the most heinous crimes on the road 20 times an hour. They overtake, and when they overtake, accident might occur. So how many accidents occurs in 1 hour? That is 20 times. They break the rules. They commit the heinous crime, that is 20 times in an hour. He recalls an incident he had probably witnessed in a place called Avenida Presidency Vargas. He says it is the worst place in Brazil, known for its crowded and slow-moving traffic. On the other hand, that drivers drive recklessly, and here he recalls the traffic, crawling traffic. When the person who is seated in the driving seat, where he moves his car very fast, the pedestrian has to save his life. So once the pedestrian saves his life, he turns back and says to the man who is seated in the driving seat, today it is your day, tomorrow it might be mine. Today you're inside the car, me on the road. Tomorrow you might be on the road and me in the car. So they take it as a fair game. They feel that it is a fair game. It is a hunter and a prey game. But there is one place in Brazil where the traffic is worst in that place, that is in Avenida Presidency Vargas. The traffic is worst in that place. And what the author called that has, he named it as a crawling traffic. He calls it as a crawling traffic. He tells the reader that he might witness a situation in which a man standing beside you on your side on the road suddenly discovers a friend of his on the other side and starts to him. So the author says that is George Mike says that one of the person who is in the traffic on one side, and from there he finds one of his friend on the other side of the road. So here this friend is in the traffic. He finds the other friend on the other side of the road. He asks him, how on earth did you ever go there? The other fellow hails back, how I was born to this side. So the man who is stuck in the traffic, he's just asking his friend, how did you go and reach from here to that place? So the man over there says that I was born here. So sometimes it might look very funny because in the traffic, it is not at all possible to find a friend from this corner to the other corner and speak to each other. That is about the Japan and Brazil through a traveler's eye. From this chapter, you can expect 1 mark 2 questions and 4 marks 2 questions. So let's see the 1 marks questions from this chapter. Exquisitely well-mannered people refers to. So whom does exquisitely well-mannered people refers to? Is it Indians, Japanese or Americans? It is Japanese people. What is a man's castle in Japan? It is a telephone receiver. As I told, they give lot of privacy for the person who is over the telephone. So what is man's castle? It is a telephone receiver. What is the one common thing that you notice when step into Japan? What do you notice? You notice bowing to each other. Who do the Japanese stores employ? Japanese stores employ bowing girls. Whom do they employ? They employ bowing girls. What is the sign of appreciation while eating soup? Making a fearful noise. If not, you'll be called as an ill-mannered lout. How are the streets of Copacabana decorated in Brazil? They are decorated with beautiful black mosaics. Motor cars are extremely expensive in Brazil. They might ask this for fill up the blanks. Whose life is becoming more hazardous in Brazil every day? It is a pedestrian's life, because once the driver is seated in his seat, that is in the car, he moves his vehicle or his car very fast, where the pedestrian has to save his life. Name the animal mentioned in this chapter, that is deer or deer. What happened when leisurely people in Brazil get a steering wheel in their hands? They drive the vehicle so fast. How many times do the drivers force other drivers to commit heinous crimes every hour? So it is 20 times. They make the other drivers to commit a heinous crime in an hour. Let's move on to the 4 marks question. A man's telephone receiver is his castle. Explain. Japanese are executively well-mannered people. The people living in overcrowded island do not respect any privacy. Honestly, has a double function. It is courtesy and it is substitute privacy. For example, the little telephone is situated on the table or on a counter as there is no space to spare for booths. As I told, once you enter inside the Japan or once you step into the Japan, within 15 minutes, you will get to know that the people of Japan are well-mannered people and they respect each other's privacy. As I told, the space is too very congested. It is not like other countries. So they don't even have proper place to place the telephone. They have kept the telephone near the counter and the one who is talking over the phone, they are not even bothered about what they are talking about or what the discussion is going on between the two persons over the phone. They respect each other's privacy. Still, most confidential business transactions, intimate love quarrels are conducted in public at in perfect privacy. It might be a business transaction or it might be a quarrel over the phone, but there they respect each other's privacy. They are not bothered of it. Any passerby could not listen in. A man's telephone receiver is his castle. So, if one is over the phone, the one who is passing, the passerby, he will be not bothered to listen what the people or what is the conversation going on between the two persons. They'll never listen to it. So, this says man's telephone receiver is his castle. How does George Marx describe bowing to be a quainter and infectious trait of Japanese people? In Japan, bowing mania strikes travelers. Everybody keeps bowing to everybody else with a natural and intimate grace and solemnity of a courtier. Bowing is quainter, formal, oriental and also infectious. It is neither less nor more silly than shaking hands or kissing the cheek. The Japanese have a complicated hierarchy in bowing. Who bows to whom, how deeply and for how long. As I told, their mania. What is the mania of Japanese? It is bowing to each other. Everybody bows to everybody else. Whether he might be a rich or a lower caste. Whether he is in a higher position or whether he is having a social position, whatever, it doesn't matter to them, but they bow to each other. And what is the complicated thing? The complicated hierarchy is whom to bow, how deeply and for how long to bow. So only the people of Japanese, they know it very well and they find it very easy. But the people who have visited the country, they might find it bit difficult because they'll be not knowing when to straighten up, when to stand erect. But for the people of Japan, it is easy because that is the mania they follow in Japan. Early traffic law in one of the American states that if two cars met at an intersection, neither was to move before the other had gone. So anyone has to move before the other had gone. Similarly, if two Japanese, neither is to straighten up before the other stands erect in front of him. It is little complicated to us, but they may manage it without difficulty. Even the smallest difference in rank, standing, age, social position will be subtly reflected in bowing style. The basic rules inside the family, as I told, they have to follow certain rules inside the family. The wife should bow her head to her husband, the child to the father, brothers to the elder brothers, and the sisters should bow to the brothers of whatever age they are. Japanese stores, whom do they employ? Japanese stores employ bowing girls whose only duty is to bow deeply and differentially to all. So why are they appointed? They are appointed to bow deeply as well as in a different manners to each and everyone. The deer has a true Japanese, bowed to the visitors and then jump and snatch the food back from the hand. So here, George Mike is sitting in Nara, which is one of the part of Japan. And there, the deer also has followed the same custom by bowing its head. It just snatched the food packet from the narrator, that is George Mike's, and it goes away. The two conductors, that is, as I told, the two conductors in the famous and the fast Tokida line between Tokyo and Osaka, they march towards the mid of the coach, they bow to each other and then they start checking the tickets. Next is about eating soup. While eating soup, what you have to do, you have to make a fearful noise or else you will be called as an ill-mannered lout, because the hostess who have served the soup to you will think that you are not appreciating her soup. So, making fearful noise is also difficult because it should not irritate the other person. If it irritates also, you will be called as an ill-mannered lout. Moving on to the next one. The traffic in Brazil leads to humorous observation. Explain. George Mike says that nobody hurries in Brazil. Reaching the destination an hour early, a day late, or not at all does not matter. The grave pavements in the streets are decorated with beautiful black mosaics because the people of Brazil, they have too much of time, too much of leisure time. So at that time, they decorate their pavements with black mosaics. People who have plenty of time could do so during their meditative ambulatory exercises. These leisurely people love speed driving. What the people of Brazil loves? They love speed driving. Gaining a 10-second in matter of grave importance for all of them all the time. Motor cars are extremely expensive in Brazil. The number of motor vehicles in Brazil is growing rapidly and the pedestrian's life are becoming risky as he has to jump, leap and run for dear life, because George Mike feels that the motor cars are too very expensive, but you can see the traffic is so very high, and he says that by seeing into the traffic there, that is the motor vehicles are distributed for free of cost. He feels so. The drivers do not care about them. As soon as the driver noticed a pedestrian stepping out of the pavement, he regards him as a fair game. So when he sees the pedestrian stepping out, he feels that it is a fair game. It is a hunter and a prey game. He takes aim and accelerates. Neither the pedestrian nor the driver resent this in the least. The hunter and the prey smile ambiguously at each other. If the driver wins once, the pedestrian gets the chance to win next. As I told, when they see the pedestrian crossing the road, they'll give the accelerator and they'll start to move the vehicle very fast. And the pedestrian has to jump, leap and save his dear life. And once he saved his life, the pedestrian turned back to the driver and says, today you're in the driving seat, tomorrow it might be my chance to win the game. The war between drivers themselves is murderous but not good-tempered. There is no anger, no hostility and no mad hooting and the like, even when there is a cut in, overtaking and commit all the most heinous crimes of the road and crossing the road 20 times every 1 hour. So, when they overtake, they cross their limits, they might commit a heinous crime for an hour. So, how many crimes they commit for an hour? It is 20 times. But even then, there is no hostility and no manhooting. They'll just smile and move away. The traffic is so terrific that the pedestrians feel that it is their second birth. If the pedestrian has saved his life, then he feels that he got his second birth because of the way they drive over there. That's all about the chapter Japan and Brazil through a traveler's eye. In my next revision class, I'll be revising the chapter The Otter. Until then, have a good day. Thank you.